Welcome, Army fans. This is Joe Iacono with GoBlackKnights.com with a special bi-week edition of the GBK podcast. We are reloading something we did last season, but we have two brand new guests. This is the GBK subscriber podcast. We have two subscribers, both West Point grads, both huge Army football fans. John Bruellman out of Minnesota, class of 90, and Steve Kreipe out of Huntsville, Alabama. And Steve, I'm not sure what class you're, so we'll start with you, Steve. Just give us your graduating class, where you live now, what you're doing. If you want to talk a little bit about your radio show, you're welcome to, and how long you've been a subscriber with GBK.
Yeah. Wow. So class of 84. So I'm officially the old grad in the room here. We're hanging out with these young bucks here. Retired Army, was an Army aviator about midway through, switched over to acquisition. Retired back in '04. Have been in industry since then. I'm currently working for a company called Pinnacle Solution. We do training simulators, primarily defense application. The company's claim to fame is Mike Durant, the founder, Black Hawk Down fame, remarkable individual. Was privileged to work for him for a few years before he handed off the company. Also worked the Facebook page for Crawdads Countdown to Kickoff. We also have an game week broadcast where we bring on coaches, talk Army football, prep for the upcoming game. And we've been doing that for about 15 years.
Cool. And how long have you been a subscriber with GoBlackKnights.com?
Wow. 10, 15 years. It's been a while.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. You're one of the OGs then. You're probably one of the longest standing. That beats me for sure. So
Okay.
that's pretty good. I know Charles just took over like in the late 2000s, so you're right there with him
Okay.
probably. So pretty cool. John, how about you? John Bruellman from Minnesota, class of 90. Go for it.
Yeah, well, great to be with you, Joe. Thanks for having me, and Steve as well, and all the listeners, or viewers. But yes, John Bruellman, class of '90, talking from you to you from near Minneapolis, Minnesota today, which is where I live. Let's see, class of '90. Spent my time as a armor officer, actually, in cab units most of the time. I did. My stint in the military was short. I did my initial commitment on active duty and then spent a few years in the Guard after that. And then was on to business school in the business world, which I've been doing ever since. Currently, I am the CEO of a what I'd call mid-market manufacturing and large format printing company. We make displays for retail, trade shows, promotional items, things of that nature. And I am supposed to be working right now. And if our employees knew that what I was doing while they're all working hard, they would be disappointed. But that's what I do now. Unlike Steve, I have no qualifications whatsoever to be here, other than I am a lover of Army football.
That is pretty much the only qualification you need, so that's good. And John, how long have you been with GoBlackKnights.com?
I would say it's about the same as Steve. I remember being on the message boards. Even in the late '90s. Now, and there was some transition there, if I remember right. But I was complaining about things in the dark days. Todd Berry ball, and I was on the message
Oh,
boards doing that. So that was a long time ago.
yeah, you gave me PTSD there. Anything
Yeah, man,
related to
that's almost a
Barry Ball.
Pavlovian response, man.
Right? Yeah,
As
yeah.
soon as we hear that name, it literally is like, oh my Lord, what are we
Yeah.
doing? So wow, so you're a KG vet then for sure. And I know you're a huge college football fan of the Big Ten and as well, obviously with Minnesota and everything. So John, we're very early in the 2024 campaign for the Black Knights, but 2-0. I think Army went down to Boca and surprised some people with their performance against Florida Atlantic. They were 3.5 point underdogs and really dominated that game, won by 17 points. There was a key fumble late in the first half. Had it not happened, possible we win by even more, 27 or 31 maybe. So again, early on, as Army fans, we tend to be naturally cautious. and a little pessimistic, but what has you most excited about what you've seen out of this version of the Black Knights?
Right. Well, actually, there's a couple things, and you're right. We've all learned to be cautious here. And I will say this 2 games in, though, for me, this feels different already, and it's only a small sample set. What do I mean by that? Well, first thing, it seems to me this team has rediscovered its offensive identity, right? And it is incredible to watch what we've seen here over the first couple of games. Not only do we have our identity back, but we're actually, I think it feels like the old true identity where now we're running an offense that actually has 3 different options on most plays, and we're using those options, right? And that is part of it. And you can feel a confidence in the team. The second thing I would say, there's something that comes through the screen. Like you can feel the confidence in this team, and you can tell that, oh, that you know what, you don't know exactly who they are out there, but you know there's some leaders out there on that field. And that's there. But that leads me to the third thing. So impressed with Bryson Daly as the season has started. He just looks like a different guy to me. I mean, he was always a
Yeah.
quality player, but boy, oh boy, has he stepped it up. You can feel that come through the screen. You can hear that in his interviews. He's a different guy, and I think he is one of those leaders that I talked about. So I'm excited, Joe.
Yeah, no, I couldn't have said it any better, honestly. You totally read my mind, read my thoughts. I have a lot of the same thoughts. How about you, Steve? You guys, you and Crawdad see a lot. I was at the Florida Atlantic game, kind of sitting next to him the whole time. You guys know the coaches pretty well. You get to talk to some of the players. Early on, are you getting some of kind of the same vibes that John's getting, that there's something a little bit special about this 2024 team?
Yeah, definitely. And I will tell you, they often say that the biggest improvement during the season happens between game 1 and game 2. And I will tell you, we definitely saw that in spades. I came out of Lehigh. Okay, we won like I thought we should have, but there were some things there. There were some red flags that I go, ooh, okay, if we don't get those right, we may be in for a tough season. And specifically the run defense. We gave up 170 some yards to Lehigh, and we're going, holy smokes, if we give up that to a lower rung team, and they weren't just an FCS team, they're a lower rung FCS team.
Yep.
And
Yep.
the big change game 1 to game 2, one position change, and that was at nose tackle, and moved up Cody Harris Miller to nose tackle, extra 25 pounds over center. And I'm not going to attribute it all to that, but I think putting that up there, that sort of alleviated that. Bryson Daly, I mean, a guy who was recruited as a linebacker, plays quarterback like a linebacker. Game 1, some of the passes reminiscent of what we saw last season. Sort of shortened some of the short passes, overthrowing some of the long passes. And there was a lot of talk about really focusing on his mechanics in the offseason. So I had high expectations. But then, wow, Florida Atlantic. I mean, the pass over the middle, man, was just a thing of beauty. Hit him in stride, and I thought, okay, that's what they were talking about. And from a leadership standpoint, the captains on both sides of the ball, rock solid. But I think even the non-captains bring in the leadership, which again, team like Army at West Point shouldn't be a surprise. But to see them, their on the field leadership. The other thing I would say is, as a system, as a coaching team, it really seems like Monken and his staff have hit their stride. They've got their development process. They know how to identify not only the skill sets, but the type of players that fit within their scheme that they can refine, not only from a recruiting standpoint, but once they get there, how do they sharpen those? And I think, that's probably not seen in a more vivid way than at linebacker. It just seems like every year, oh no, we've lost Radigan. Oh no, we've lost Christians. And how are we gonna survive next year? And linebacker just seems like it's next man up. They know how to develop
Yep.
those folks. And Caleb Fortner, man, he's next man up, leading the team in tackles, and is just a ball hawk like we've seen from a lot of Army linebackers.
Man, you guys hit on a lot of good stuff that gives us a lot to talk about, really. Kind of, the first thing I want to hit on is, you guys mentioned Bryson Daly, and I think he was always a solid option quarterback. I always thought in the right offense he could be successful. Last year's offense was not a good fit for him or a lot of people, really. But I thought in the right offense he could be successful. But I'm with you guys. I mean. I talk to him, a lot, definitely after every game. And I'm just seeing a different dude out there in terms of his leadership, his confidence level, his expectancy. That's been really impressive. In addition to Bryson, who else, Steve, offensively has really impressed you early on? And we have some studs like Brady Small and Kanye Udo, who you kind of expected big things out of. But who kind of jumped up and surprised you guys out of nowhere or maybe not even out of nowhere, but who's exceeded expectations, I guess is the best way I could ask that.
Well, you mentioned Brady Small. Okay, can't let that pass. I mean, number one, starting as a plebe rarely happens, especially at center, quarterback of the offensive line. But then for him to come out on the Remington watch list as a sophomore, when that list is normally stacked with seniors and juniors, man, wow. I'm really liking the offensive line as a whole. I think they've, again, next man up, but they seem to have already come together really, really well. At the preseason, if you'd asked me who would we be talking about a running back, I would have said Kanye Udo. I mean, what we saw from him, just a real bruiser, but with great field vision, can shoot the gaps in that. But man, Noah Short, you know,
Yeah.
he's been, and I'm hoping they can work those two guys as sort of a 1-2, shot, and that gives us a really dynamic backfield with complementary skill sets, and I'm excited about that. And then former fullback Hayden Reed has really stepped up.
Yeah.
I think he's number 3 or number 4 in rushing. So the backfield, I'm really excited about that. We can keep that backfield healthy. I'm still holding out hope that Tyrell Robinson will come back from his offseason tweak. I mean, he's just an exciting. I mean, especially
Yep.
punt return and that. I'm still holding. I had a chance to sit down with his dad at the LSU game last year, and just was exciting just hearing from dad and the expectations, the hope. So I'm really rooting for him. Especially just coming off the injuries that he has. Would love to see him finish his career at Army strong with a big flash.
Yeah, I mean, you put him at one slot and Noah Short at the other slot, and that's. I mean, it's fun. It's like you can hear the excitement in my voice, and I think you guys are the same way because we've all been following Army football a long time, right? And it's always been like, well, we're not the most talented, but we're going to be the tougher team. We're going to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
smarter.
there you go.
And it's
Yeah.
like, dude, we got some real D1 guys out there. Like, that's no knock on anybody else or anybody who came before, but like, we all have pretty good eyeballs, I think.
Oh
And
yeah.
booth, the Florida Atlantic guys were in the booth like 2, 3 seats down from me to the right. And when Noah put that stutter step on that linebacker Tisdale and just blew him away, they both looked at me and they were like, we didn't see this coming. They they were like, that could start for us all day long. Like, it's amazing. John, how about you? Who are you seeing on the offensive side of the ball who's exceeded expectations?
Yeah, well, Steve touched on a lot of it. You guys talk. Hard to not talk about Noah Short, of course. Yeah, I too, Tyrell Robinson. I was looking forward to seeing him play, but was also nervous about that. Even if he did come back, how many times have you seen guys that come back from a significant injury and they're just not quite the same? And I know inside knowledge there at all. Tyrell maybe just like he was. but it is a worry. And so I was happy to see, Noah step right in. One of the things that really struck me about him, especially in the FAU game, uh, you know, in years past, we didn't maybe have quite as much speed at some of our slot back positions. And in the times we did get the ball to the perimeter, there appeared to be an opening, and you just expected it. Okay, here comes the linebacker, here comes the D-back screaming up. That's a 3-yard gain, even though it looked like a 10-yard opening. That didn't happen again. I mean, you'd say, oh, there's an opening there. Oh, he just made it a bigger opening. Oh, he's still going. And so he showed some speed that I didn't expect. And then the other one, his counterpart, I have to give a shout out to Reed too. I'm one of those that likes to watch the games and see, okay, even if you're not carrying the ball, what are you doing? That kid can block. And
Yeah.
if I picked an unsung hero right now, it would be him. He's going to win a game or two for us. We might not even notice this year just by throwing a block, catching a pass, and he's a capable ball carrier too. He is, and he's a kid that you just can see knows his role. So I'm excited about that. But those would be I guess the two. And Steve mentioned the offensive line, but really impressed with all of them. Right, just phenomenal in the last game.
Hey, if I
Yeah, I mean
interject.
those are. Go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
Yeah. Kanye Udo. The one reason I'm glad that he's not leading the team in rushing. One of my concerns being a sophomore, the transfer portal, that 800-pound gorilla. We've had a couple players test the waters out there. We haven't lost any, but given how good he looked, I thought if he comes off of a really big year this year, would he be back for his cow year? So there's the silver lining that he's not leading the team in rushing.
Well, you know what? It's a good point, and I don't know if some of the kids watch these things or not. But if you do, hey Kanye, just we didn't mention you as an unsung hero. That's because everybody knows you're a stud. We want you here at Army, and I look forward to watching you, all of you guys, the next few years. You've got a phenomenal future if you stay with this program.
There you go.
Absolutely. I talked to Coach Drinkle the other night about Kanye and Brady Small, and both those guys can play at the P4 level, no doubt about it. And Kanye, shout out to Kanye's parents last Friday night at the parents' party before the game. Kanye's mom came over to me from across the room, gave me a big hug. She's great. She's awesome. So they got their head screwed on straight, and I think they want to be Army Black Knights for all 4 years, hopefully. So that's exciting. Hayden Reed's a great call, John. Every time I talk to the coaches, they say the exact same thing. Best blocker on the offense. That's not an offensive lineman. Really, really does a nice job, and he does whatever they ask him to do. He can play slot. He can spell Kanye at fullback. And very, very versatile. Miles Stewart also, who hasn't even had a carry yet, threw a bunch of really good blocks on the perimeter last week. So that was really cool. And just it was funny. I was talking to Coach Drinkle about this. I've never been around a culture where when we interview, I don't know, Steve, how much you guys get to interview the actual players, but whenever we interview the players, like all they want to talk about is how well they're doing blocking. Like they don't care about who's getting the most touches. Like it is such a weird culture, but like an awesome culture at the same time.
That is outstanding. I mean, yeah, that speaks a huge amount for the coaching leadership right there to cultivate that kind of, again, culture where I subordinate, the flashy stuff for the betterment of the team, and that is exciting. I mean, that's Army football right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, going over to the defensive side of the ball, right? I think we had a lot of concerns. You kind of mentioned it, Steve. Came out against Lehigh a little slow, gave up a lot of rushing yards, but then held Florida Atlantic to 2 yards a carry, which was awesome. Really key to the game. One of Nate Woody's keys is always stop the run. One of the other things I've really come to appreciate about Coach Woody's defense over the years, and I've had a number of opportunities to talk with him. Steve, I don't know how much you and Bill get a chance to talk with him, but he's very Bill Belichickian in his philosophy. He really believes in bend don't break, and My dad was a defensive coordinator when I was a kid, and he used to say, Joseph, there's no points given out for first downs. So if they don't get in the end zone, and I was sitting next to Bill, and I said to him and Seth Mendelson, I go, oh, good, they're on the 2 yard line now. We got them right where we want them. And I knew they weren't getting in because nobody ever gets in down there. Um, so, but the defense was really young, really untested. Steve, you already mentioned Caleb Fortner and Cody Harris Miller. But who on the defensive side of the ball, maybe other than those two, if anybody, has really kind of impressed you early on this season?
Yeah, one thing I would just say maybe to the whole defense, maybe start there. One of my concerns, and especially for longtime Army football fans, one of the things that we dread is facing a mobile quarterback who can also throw. And again, the Florida Atlantic's quarterback is not going to be. He's not on any Heisman watch list or anything like that. But he had showed he can. He was at Marshall last year, put up big yards both on the ground and in the air. And the fact that we contained him, Cam Fancher, 4 rushes for 10 yards, 2.5 yards a clip, that was really good. So to see the team as a whole really step up and take that step on defense was fantastic. But I think Chance Keith,
Yeah.
DB, I think those are that was another thing that concerned a little bit coming out of the Lehigh game. How are our DBs going to, because we got a fresh crop largely, especially at cornerback. Really good to see Chance step up. Another one at linebacker, Andon Thomas.
Andon Thomas, yeah.
And I told you can't talk about the defense without talking about the captain Max. I just think he just through his presence on the field makes the defense better. There's something.
Yep.
He's one of those high energy guys. Similar to Bryson being back at the quarterback or in the huddle. Says we can do this, and the team believes it because of what they see in his eyes. I think Max has that same kind of impact on the defense. They look to him, they see the confidence in him, they say, yeah, we can do this.
Yeah, you talked about kind of the lineage now at linebacker that we're building and the tradition and the culture we have at linebacker. You mentioned some of the guys who are in the NFL now and how it's kind of next man up. That free safety position under Nate Woody has kind of become the quarterback of the defense. And I'm gonna miss some guys here, but under Jay Bateman, you had Ryan England and Gibby Gibson and on the Marquell Broughton, and now Max seems like the next guy in that lineage to kind of quarterback the defense back there, and just be in the right place at the right time, like he was on the double coverage INT in the red zone against FAU last week. So,
Yeah,
John, how about you?
Yeah, defensively, honestly, Joe, you and I talked about it before the season. I think I might have even had a message or two about it out on the board, but that was my concern going into it. You looked at the list. I hardly know any of these guys. I mean, this is like a brand new unit stepping out on the field. And you know what? I'll maybe mention one by name in a minute here, but otherwise I'll stay away from individuals because that is the thing that has struck me in just watching these two games is how well they play team defense. And if you watch the D line, they're doing such a nice job keeping guys off of our linebackers who have been flowing really well to the plate, and they're keeping contained, and they do it with the right amount, if there is such a thing, the right amount of emotion. We've all seen this. You see particularly relevant or real in, say, losing programs where the defense plays with such emotion. They're jumping around. They make a good play. It's all excitement. Our hair is on fire. The next play, they're over pursuing and somebody's going 90, right? And that doesn't happen with these guys. At least it seems to me, right? They play discipline. No surprise. They play with an even keel, and you can tell, okay, they just got a first down, no big deal. We're going to just play your spot, do your thing, and everything's going to work out okay. And I think I think part of that comes from the leadership. So Max, I would point to part of that comes from the athletes we have out there. and part of that I think comes from scheme. So give Coach Woody a lot of credit. But the other one individual I'd point to, and I don't even know why. I just watched the kid, Donovan Platt.
If you didn't bring him up, I was going to bring him up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even point to a particular play. He just seems like an athlete out there, and I think he is there's something he's got that I think he's a star in the making. I really do. And once in a while, you can see the communication back there. Max will go over and talk to him, and it's, hey, we got this, we got this. But he's got some athletic ability. We're going to hear from him.
Yeah, no doubt. He had the one-handed INT against Lehigh, and not saying the refs blew a call, but I think he had a one-handed INT in zone against Florida Atlantic.
I tell you what, the thing that amazed me about that one was, I mean, that was a wide receiver kind of catch. And not only what he did with his hands, but more importantly, what he did with his feet. I mean, that was just remarkable.
Yeah, that was super impressive. So good stuff. Kind of as we wrap up here, one of the last things I want to talk about, I really have two more topics total. The next one is, and John, you kind of mentioned it in your open and your intro, the identity of the offense. And I talked a lot about this with Coach Drinkle the other night, and he talked about how him and Mike Vitti and Cody Worley all work together, along with all the other position coaches on offense, of course, Aaron Smith, Coach Romero, Coach Powers, all those guys. They have really good chemistry. A lot of young guys, a lot of creativity, which is something you don't usually see out of the Army offense, so to speak. But Steve, why don't you talk to a little bit so far? Again, we just have a 2-game sample. Really, we have the Coastal Carolina game last year too, and the West Virginia Bowl game a couple of years ago. So I guess we have a 4-game sample size. Talk to us about what you've seen out of Cody Worley and what impresses you with him as an OC.
Yeah, I'm liking it. I've always just liked his personality. He's got that contagious personality, and what's not to love about that hair,
Yeah, exactly.
But I had Bill and I had the privilege of going to the White House for the Commander in Chief's trophies presentation, and so we were hanging out in the White House, and Worley comes up, and so I said, okay, so what are we going to see? And talked about sort of what existed before Thatcher came in and what Thatcher did. And he says, I'm going to pull from the best of both. And I think he really has done that. You think about where it was prior to Thatcher, we throw the ball maybe once every 8 plays or so. Thatcher cut that in half, probably a little bit too much. But I like his philosophy of throw the ball when you can throw it, when the opportunity presents it. Don't wait till you have to throw it. And I like that mix up. And it really, it's one thing for especially an option ground-based team to say, yeah, I can throw it, but how do you make the defense respect that really in turn opens up the ground game? And I think he's striking that right balance. And some of these big pass plays that we've had, I think is getting the attention of some of the defensive coordinators of our future opponents, and they're going to have to respect that. And I'm excited about what that's going to do in the ground game. One of the things that really brought Thatcher in was the change in the blocking rules. The whole chop block, cut block, and really handicapping us. It appears that one of the things that Worley is doing is those quick pitches. Can we beat them to the outside? Then we don't have to worry about that perimeter blocking and those perimeter cut blocking or chop blocking or cut blocking, correct, that we used to have to rely on. And that seems to be working. Now, the real test will be 4, 5, 6, 7 games in the season as future opponents have more tape on Army. Can they mitigate that? Will they continue to be that effective? But I'm excited. I like that he's a risk taker. And you even see that in Bryson Daly. Sometimes, last season, some of those pitches probably but I like that he's willing to take that chance. And I think both Worley and Daly are cut from the same cloth, and I think that makes them such a great combination offensively.
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of the things I said to Coach Drinkle the other night is in the past, and John, I know you've got some good stuff here because we've talked about it offline. In the past, I've always felt like sometimes Army would throw a pass at like just a bad time. And you knew like if it was incomplete, it was going to stifle the whole drive. Like they were toast. I haven't in the two games, I don't think I've noticed. I mean, not that they need to check with me, but I haven't noticed like one bad down and distance pass call in the first two games. It's always been like right when it's needed. And if we don't get it, we can recover from it. It's never like those annoying, like second and long passes that go nowhere because the defense is ready for it. And then we have third and long. So I feel like the timing of his pass calls have been really, really on point. John, what have you seen out of the new offense?
Yeah, boy, where do I start? So I agree with what you guys are saying. I think I'm going to take a little broader approach here and give some props because it's not right if we don't. I am so impressed with the coaching staff, and I'd say the whole organization really, but it takes leaders, true leaders, to say, you know what, we tried to change because we thought something was going to work better. This isn't working, and we need to change again, and we need to move on the dime. Actually, in watching that, I'll use some military analogies, right?
Yeah.
Army offense, even when Coach Davis was here, I felt like we're watching Pickett's charge here over and over and over again, and we've stopped that. And yes, just okay, either the be back, run into the middle, or let's get really creative and run our 5'7" quarterback sort of off tackle and have him slam his head against the wall. That was our creativity, and it worked enough to beat Navy most of the time. But Coach Monken, to his credit, saw that, said we need to change. What they did last year, in my opinion, didn't work very well, and it takes some leadership to say, you know what, let's take another military term. You took a tactical pause, right, like you would in an armor battalion. Say this isn't working. Stop. What are we doing? Let's regroup. Let's go another direction. And it takes courage to do that. And I mean, in some ways, you're putting your career on the line in college football if you do that. So
Yeah.
that was remarkable courage, and it is night and day different. So my main point there, we got to give kudos to the entire coaching staff for what they did, and for the players in adjusting and following to that. Right?
Yeah.
Is that's not easy either. Bryson, last year we're asking you to be sort of Peyton Manning. I know that's hyperbole, but Peyton Manning. Now we're asking you to be Ahmad Bradshaw. So whatever the case might be, that's difficult to do on the dime, but the players have done it.
Yeah, absolutely. So last thing, Steve, again, 2-0, long season, obviously. You look at the schedule and you start going, wow, okay. I mean, I even saw something the other day on Twitter, right? This is Nick Saban's famous rat poison, but teams that will probably be undefeated at the end of September, and Army's on that list, right? So, you don't want to jinx anybody, but you start to look at the schedule and you go, wow, this is winnable. I looked at ESPN's FPI, and right now they have us 10-2. But what obviously other than Notre Dame, like let's leave them to the side. Other than them, what games maybe from what you've seen so far give you some concern down the road?
Yeah, I tell you what, if you'd asked me this about 3 weeks ago, I'd have said Air Force and UTSA. Air Force currently in total offense is 131 out of 134 teams.
What is going on at Air Force?
Yeah, I mean, I think all those fifth, sixth, and seventh year seniors finally graduated, and they're they're starting all over. UTSA was again, that's another surprise.
Yeah, that's been a shocker, right?
Yeah, they were one of the first teams to get on the transfer portal bandwagon. When the year that became legal, they immediately hired 4 people. That's all they did. Now, suddenly, a few years into the process, they've got a whole lot of competition now with the advent of NIL. And I think they just they got to the point where they relied too much on the transfer portal, and that's no longer filling the pipeline. Now they're having to go old school and get those recruiting contacts and all those kind of things. And so they're playing catch up. But North Texas, I think, is one.
Yeah.
They just seem to be a team that always plays us tough, especially in Denton. But the crazy thing is, right now, I'm a big fan of the Massey composite rankings. If you're not familiar with it, it's an aggregate or a composite poll. So they take all the nationally recognized polls, average them, rack and stack them. We outrank currently every one of our opponents except for Notre Dame, and that is just crazy. I would have never.
That is crazy.
But like you say, it is early in the season. We've all seen a few injuries here, there, and the dynamics can change in a hurry. But both the academy games, playing our sister academies, those are always wild cards. So if I had to rack and stack them, I would say North Texas and then our sister academies.
Yeah, it's funny, the school down in Maryland actually looks pretty good so far. I think they've had their best start they've had in maybe 5 or 6 years, which has been impressive. John, how about you? Anything stand out on the schedule that's major concern?
Yeah, well, let's start with early on. I feel like look at the Tulsa game. I don't think they're any great shakes from and I haven't seen them play much, but that one just falls at a time on the schedule. Or okay. Trap game, maybe. So I no other reason than timing, probably. I'm a little concerned about that. And then the other, and even more so, this will sound strange, but right, I can pick up, even as excited as I get, with cold sweats, thinking this team's going to go undefeated. What happens if Navy beats us? Right? So if we bring it up, said on Notre Dame, by the way, would not have for the year that's even remotely possible. I'm now bringing that into the if things really go well category. That could be a possibility. I'm not saying we're going to upset Notre Dame, but there's a chance. But let's say you go through the season with a perfect, nearly perfect record, and you play Navy, right? What a buzzkill that would be to lose to them at that point. So I'm already worrying about that. People will say, don't look ahead to that. That would be such a buzzkill for the team, and for me personally, that's the game. It will always be circled, and even more so this year.
Come on, John, don't go there. Don't go there.
I'm telling you, I just
come on, pull back, step back from the ledge, man.
I know.
We can do this.
I'm an Army fan. I have to be on the somewhere at some point. Right?
The year we broke the streak, 2016, when we beat them, they had just come out of the AAC championship, losing to Temple.
Yes.
And so I can't think about December yet. My brain's just not wired that way. But I hear you. And I think, we've heard Navy and Air Force both say this. Well, conference championship's most important to us. Thank goodness for Coach Monken. He's never said that BS. He's like, no, we need to beat Navy and win the CIC, right? And that's definitely the most important. And you're right, though. Like, if we had this amazing season, like, pulled an upset on Notre Dame, make it to the AAC championship, maybe even pull now I'm getting really crazy. Maybe even pull the 12 seed in the playoff and then lose the Navy. It's like, dude, what just happened? That'd be like the kick 6 year in the Alabama-Auburn game, Steve.
Yes, it would.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Well, guys, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Wish I could talk to y'all longer. I do that enough offline anyway, but thanks for stepping in and coming to see us. Guys, check out Steve's show, Crawdads Countdown to Kickoff. What nights is that show on ESPN?
Wednesday night, 7:30 to 8:30 Central Time.
Good stuff. It's always good. And guys, thanks a lot. Go Army, beat Navy.